to get us started, we have fusion power. Are we there yet? With Dana Peters. He's an engineer who develops software professionally and as a hobby. He's a perennial presenter at Skepticamp and one of the founding members of the Ottawa Skeptics.
All right, good morning, fellow Skepticampers. I'm good to see there's so many people out here early in the morning. My topic is fusion power. Are we there yet? I'm going to be going over some of the history of what's happened in fusion power in the last few decades and where we're going perhaps in the next few decades. I want to recall this movie from 1985 called Back to the Future. And the characters in this movie were Marty McFly and Doc Brown. And they had a time machine was built into this DeLorean. And in the time machine, they could go into the past. And in the second movie, they also went into the future. They went to the futuristic year of 2015, 30 years into the future. And it's interesting to see what they thought would be, what type of technology we'd have in 2015. So one of the things that we're supposed to get in 2015 is this hoverboard. I haven't noticed anyone riding around in one of these, so it's unfortunate that we never saw the hoverboard. But it reminds me of a quote from the late Yogi Berra. The future ain't what it used to be. How true. But we also saw some other technology in 2015. Doc Brown found an alternative power source for his time machine. He retrofitted it to the DeLorean. It's called Mr. Fusion. And it looks suspiciously like a coffee machine. In fact, the name is supposed to be a parody of Mr. Coffee. And the movie actually used a coffee grinder as the prop for Mr. Fusion. So the year is 2015. Why don't we have Mr. Fusion running our DeLoreans? Well, people have joked that fusion is the power of the future and always will be, because it seems like it never is progressing. We never see real fusion power. But actually, just a few years later, in 1989, a pair of distinguished scientists, Martin Fleischmann and Stanley Pons, actually called a press conference, and they announced that they had discovered cold fusion, a way of generating power using fusion that happened at room temperature. But unfortunately, over the months that followed, it caused a big furor. The scientific community worldwide tried to duplicate what they claimed to have done, and no one was able to duplicate this. And so, infamously, they landed on the cover of Time magazine. And so, unfortunately, like I say, no one was able to duplicate it, so it fell into the realm of junk science. And I think this should be a warning to all scientists that really, maybe it's not a good idea if you have a major discovery to call a press conference, unless you're really sure of yourself, because you could be wrong, and if so, it'd be very embarrassing. Now, can we generate power from fusion? Well, the answer is absolutely yes, because we have this natural fusion reactor in the sky. You might have noticed it. It's called the sun. And it's been working for 4.5 billion years thereabouts. It's probably going to work for another 5 billion years or so. So it's very reliable. And this is, nature's fusion reactor. How does it work? Well, if you go back in time more than 4.5 billion years, one time it was just a cold ball of hydrogen, and gravity over time compressed that hydrogen down, and it heated up, and the core eventually got to a temperature of about 10 million degrees. And when that happened, a fusion reaction started, and hydrogen started being converted into helium, and it released energy, and that produced an outward force that counterbalanced the force of gravity. So it's an equilibrium. So we can use this natural fusion reactor to generate power. We just have to put up some solar panels. We can capture that power. But there's problems with this, of course. For one thing, you may have noticed also that the sun's not always there all the time, because we're living on a rotating planet. And other things too, if, for example, clouds get in the way, you're going to suffer a reduction in power. And we really do want power that can be sustained 24 hours a day. In the dead of winter, we still need power. So Can we generate power using nuclear energy? Absolutely. In fact, we currently do have many nuclear power plants like this one in Pickering. Now, this, however, is not fusion power. This is fission power. And in fact, 15% of Canada's electrical needs are met by nuclear power like this. It's mostly in Ontario, but there's also a plant in New Brunswick. And a lot of the world's power is generated through fission power. Here's the top countries in the world that are generating power using fission. United States, France, Russia are the top three. And you can see France actually generates about 77% of its electricity using fission. So it's a very practical, popular way of generating power. So why do we need fusion? What's the difference? Well, the difference is that in a fission reaction, you take these heavy elements, uranium-235. It's quite radioactive. You have to dig it up from the ground. You have to purify it. And then the byproducts of the reaction are highly radioactive as well. In fact, they'll stay radioactive for thousands of years. So it poses a storage problem. Whereas in fusion, you take these relatively abundant light elements, and the byproducts of the fusion reaction are also radioactive, but they only stay radioactive for tens of years. So the problem of storage is much more tractable. Okay, so can we generate artificial fusion? Absolutely yes. It looks like this. It's kind of unfortunate because you really can't use this to generate power. You can use this to kill people, you can use this to destroy civilization, you can use this to cause the human race to go extinct maybe, but you can't generate power from it, so that's kind of unfortunate. But how does it work? How do we generate fusion in this case? Well, actually an H-bomb has within it a lower power fission bomb. So the fission bomb is the type of bomb that would have destroyed Hiroshima or Nagasaki. We wanted to destroy much larger cities though, so we had to generate this technology that could destroy large cities. Okay, how do we actually generate power from fusion rather than kill people? Well, there's ways. The main problem, though, is trying to contain this really, really hot fusion products. So one way is with magnetism, because at 10 million degrees, everything turns into a gas. So we need something non-physical, like a magnetic field, to contain the fusion products. And this is called a tokamak fusion reactor. There is one that's currently being built. Well, it's not actually to generate power. It's just an experimental reactor called ITER. It's located in the south of France. It's being built by several different countries, including the EU, US, China, Japan. The construction started in 2013, and it's expected to go into operation around 2020. So, like I say, this is just an experimental reactor. We're about 2 steps away from actually having a commercial fusion generator. That's one way of generating power with fusion. Another way is by having a very small fuel pellet, maybe only a few millimeters in diameter, and then bombarding it with incredibly intense laser light that's focused down on that point. And by doing this, you can actually compress that material and heat it to the degree that fusion starts. And then you hope to extract enough energy from that fusion reaction to more than pay for the investment of bombarding it with all this laser energy. And this is being attempted at this facility in California called the National Ignition Facility. And it's also an experimental facility. It has the world's largest laser, 500 terawatts, and it produces a pulse that's only a few picoseconds long. And unfortunately, currently they have not yet achieved fusion. There's some technical problems. Everything has to be very precise. There can't be any non-uniformity in the fuel pellet, and the laser light has to be focused very precisely. So there's a lot of technical problems with getting this working, and they still haven't got it yet. But work is proceeding. Now, interestingly, as an aside, the Star Trek Into Darkness movie used this facility as the Enterprise warp core. Now, of course, this doesn't look like any warp core in any other movie or TV show from Star Trek. So I guess J.J. Abrams just isn't into continuity. He just wants his movies to look cool. That's all that really matters, I guess. Okay. Is it possible to maybe generate fusion with a much smaller reactor instead of this huge complex? It may be possible to have a much more compact fusion reactor called a high beta fusion reactor that uses magnetic containment. Now, this is an approach that's being done by Lockheed Martin. They're actually working on this prototype compact fusion reactor. They announced it last year, and they hope that it will fit on the back of a truck, generate about 100 megawatts of electrical power, and that would be enough to, say, power about a town of about 80,000 people. So they hope to generate a prototype in a few years' time. But now, this is a skunkworks project. They're not investing a huge amount of resources in this. I think this is probably a low probability but high payoff project for Lockheed Martin. Okay, so what about the future? If we were to set our time machine for 30 years into the future, or maybe the more conventional way is just wait 30 years, that works too. What would happen? Or what can we expect to happen? And as any good skeptic knows, prediction is very difficult, especially about the future. But I'm going to hazard some guesses here. Okay, what about the things we talked about? Mr. Fusion, for example. Well, I'd say no, we're not going to see Mr. Fusion because it's unlikely that something the size of a household appliance is going to contain a 10 million degree fusion reaction. What about cold fusion? Well, nothing has happened in the last 25 years regarding cold fusion, so it's probably dead. Never say never, but based on past history, probably not. A fusion power plant using the tokamak or inertial confinement? Yeah, probably. We've already got prototypes going, and they're on their way to making a commercial power plant, and it will take probably almost 30 years, but it'll be there, likely. Okay, what about the compact fusion reactor? Well, it's still a bit too early to tell. Maybe we have to wait a few years, maybe we can reassess, but it's, I think it's only 50-50 that could come to fruition. Okay, so what about the future, though? Let's take a long-term perspective. And I just want to end with this. There's something called the Doomsday Clock you may have heard of. And this was a symbolic clock it's a countdown to possible global catastrophe. And it's been maintained since 1947 by the Bureau of Atomic Scientists. Sorry, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. And it's trying to track things that threaten our existence. And it went to its highest level in the 50s during the fusion bomb tests, when the Soviets and the US were testing their fusion bombs. It went to 2 minutes to midnight. And since then, it's been going up and down based on world events. But lately, it's actually been climbing, and it's because they've been considering other threats, such as climate change. And here's where fusion might play a role again. Because basically, those fusion bombs are threatening our existence, and if we can find a way to have those decommissioned, if we can disassemble those weapons that are threatening our existence, and find a way to use fusion power to generate clean electricity and displace the fossil fuels, we can hope to avert both crises, and we can bring that doomsday clock down to a reasonable value. So, if we can succeed in doing that, we'll have successfully beaten the sword of fusion weapons into the plowshare fusion power. And I hope that we can make that happen in the next 30 years. Thank you very much. Okay, any questions? Yes, Neil.
What's the proposed output of ITER?
It's too early to tell. It's really an experimental reactor that it's not intended to generate power yet. So we don't know. Sorry, it's too early. Yeah. Any more? Back?
There is a experiment in Vancouver. Have you heard about that?
No, I haven't. What? Can you elaborate?
I can give you details a little bit of that.
Okay, now we can talk later. Thank you.
And the second one is putting 2020 question mark.
Yeah.
The eagle that we said was probable. It may start by about 2020. And they want to hide the nuclear and nuclear after 2027. Experiment is supposed to run to 2037. So we are very
Good point taken. 30 years might be short for generating it.
So they are the people who provide the basis for the next demo. So we are looking at
Yeah. It's true that 30 years we might need all 30 years.
we can make fusion. We know fusion happens. The problem is that we don't get enough fusion to develop more energy than we put in. But fusion, of course, we can do
It is true that the trick is trying to get more energy out than you put in. I agree.
We call it a ignition point. That's what you have to get at least.
Yeah.
If you put it out, we have never reached that.
Yeah, that's exactly true, yes. Oh, Nick?
I was just wondering why they were using the deuterium and tritium for some reason as opposed to just the 4 hydrogens and the Saturn.
I believe that's the lowest energy reaction that is easiest to make happen. So yes, you could just use, in theory, you could just use hydrogen, but deuterium makes it for an easier reaction. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yes.
So the compact one, are these mostly privately funded or government?
That one, the compact one is kind of a skunkworks thing. It's not public at all. It's private. In fact, Lockheed Martin has several patents on it, so they're obviously trying to patent the technology as well. So yeah, it's definitely private. No, the other ones are all public. Well, they're public in that they're international. So yes. Yeah.
In the Doomsday Clock that you showed, the latest peak there in our time right now, you said that they've taken into account climate change. They go back and adjust the peaks for the other eras because adding climate change to the latest equation will certainly offset peaks in the past.
That is a good point. No, I don't think they didn't go back and retroactively change the Doomsday Clock, so maybe they should reevaluate now that they're adding more things. It's also questionable whether the atomic scientists are really qualified to make the call on other things like climate change, but whatever.
More qualified than you anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So, any more? Okay, I guess we're good. Thank you.